What is going on, Crisis Actors? It is episode 1014 of Pop Culture Crisis. My name is Brett. We are back on a Monday afternoon. I hope you are all doing well. I am here with my co-host. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Hello, Crisis Actors. It's Mary. I want to call you party people sometimes because I'm corny like that.
Do it.
I almost just hit the mute button on accident, and
That's
that would have been bad. Anyway, happy Monday. We're back from the weekend. The weather was quite gloomy over the weekend. It was getting to me. But
Not
I think
here.
we're getting back to normal here, at least.
Yeah, not here. We were in the 60s and the 70s all weekend.
Whoa.
So I got to skate both days over the weekend. It was absolutely
Well, I just mean
fantastic.
it was storming. It was storming, and it was warm, which I guess is not as bad as it could be.
Yeah.
But it feels like every week the nice weather is only like when I'm busy, and then when I have free time, it's horrible outside.
We were talking about it. I was talking to my dad over the weekend, and I was thinking about last spring, where here in like where we are, at least where we were in Maryland, it was like really nice in April, and then May was all storms last year. So it was like April showers bring May flowers, but it was in reverse last year.
I don't even remember
I do.
specifically.
See, when you've been skating for as long as I have, and like your weekends are dictated by whether you can get out and go skate, you remember like long stretches where the weather goes a specific direction.
Yeah.
Guys, hit the like button on this video and subscribe to the channel.
Oh my gosh, we haven't even addressed the elephant in the room, which is your flannel.
Oh yeah, well I see some people in the chat mentioning the flannel.
I know everyone was gonna freak out about that because I freaked out when I saw it.
Well,
in a good way.
I'm already regretting it because they
Are you self-conscious now?
No. So what happens is the sleeves get bunched up on the inside. Flannel works better with like a tank top underneath because there are no sleeves to get bunched up underneath. If you're out working manual labor and you're wearing like a shirt like this, that's one thing. But if you're just here, you're like doing this the whole time. Or if you're Tim, you're doing this.
I've never thought about that before, but that's true. Unless you get, well, what you have to do is you have to get a t-shirt that has sleeves that are like really fitted to your arms.
Yeah. I'd have to wear
fine.
perhaps a different shirt. I'd have to do that. I don't know. My guess is like I have a fan here.
Just like experimenting with fashion.
No. I was explaining to you beforehand. I said that this is the time of year where the weather it's like slightly maybe hoodie weather in the morning, but by the time you get off work, it's really nice out. So you split the difference and you just wear a long sleeve shirt like this to work and you're good. You don't have to choose the hoodie.
Layering.
Yeah.
But does it make you feel more millennial to wear the flannel? Like, does it make you feel like hey ho? Does it make you feel like IPAs?
Yeah.
Stomp clap.
I tweeted about that this weekend. I said, look, like all of you people are irony poisoned, and as far as I'm concerned, this was the last era where millennials took anything seriously.
Well, I drank a Moscow Mule yesterday out of a copper mug. I have no room to talk.
Moscow Mule?
Yeah, isn't that like one of
IPA?
the ultimate, aside from an IPA, is that not like the ultimate hipster millennial cocktail?
Sounds about right. Remember, I was never a big drinker. So
Especially if it's out of a copper mug.
Yeah.
Even more so.
Well, remember the millennials who when they go to the burger joints, they drink out of like what do you call them? Like the mason jars?
Oh yeah, mason jars, especially if you involve mason jars in your wedding in some sort of way.
I don't think we did at ours unless
That's a
it was
big
part of the
millennial
decorations.
motif. Yeah. I don't remember there being any mason jars at your wedding. Lots of cards though.
In the chat, Josh Chandler says flannels aren't generational.
I mean, they definitely are mostly associated with millennials, though. Like, I'm not even saying it in a bad way, so don't assume I'm throwing them under the bus.
Yeah.
But they are kind of a millennial thing.
Yeah. Guys, hit the like button on this video. Subscribe to the channel if you are new here and you have not subscribed here yet already. Please and thank you. Remember to share the episode out with everybody in your life that you both love and hate. The more people that you share this show with, the faster our channel can grow. It was actually a really good weekend. We added plenty of new people who are subscribing to the channel. A lot of the videos, people took the time to watch them. So if you are new here and you're watching live for the first time, thank you so much for joining us. We would not be here without you guys. Also, before we get into everything, I do want to draw your attention. If you aren't listening to the audio version of the podcast, or you sometimes can't get to the YouTube version of the podcast, we do have an audio platform version that goes out on Spotify and all their channels. And if you did not see my members-only edition of the show with Verbal Riot, that one is up for audio listeners now. But if you want to see the video version of it, you got to go up and become a member of PCC on YouTube. Also, you should become a member of Pop Culture Crisis on YouTube. We are growing every day with that. You get special emojis. I am working on, so basically I'm at a point now where I scheduled a possible second episode to film either tomorrow or next Tuesday. I guess it really just depends on like whether I feel like I can do it tomorrow. But I'm working on it. We're going to keep trying to get you guys as much bonus content as possible. Also, we have passed 35,000 subscribers on Rumble as well. So thank you to everybody who is watching over there. So we got a bunch of stuff to get into today. What are we going to talk about? Number one, of course, being The Bride came out over the weekend. I believe we talked about it on Thursday or Friday. It's Maggie Gyllenhaal's new movie. It's not her directorial debut, but it is her most recent directorial effort. And lo and behold, as something that comes as a shock to absolutely nobody, Feminist Frankenstein didn't do big numbers at the box office. I'm shocked. You're shocked. Everybody's shocked.
So her last movie was her first ever, her directorial debut. I believe that was called The Lost Daughter. And I'm just going to real quick look up the box office return on that. It's not coming up at first.
I'm sure it made tons of money, hand over fist.
Said it made $700,000 worldwide on a budget of $5 million.
Okay, so it wasn't a wide release. It likely came out at 5 theaters.
Yeah, it said all earnings coming from international markets. It had no domestic theatrical release.
There you
That's
go.
odd.
So that explains it. So we'll get into that. We'll talk about the outcome of that movie's release. We are also going to talk about Timothee Chalamet, who is single-handedly bringing back what it means to somehow be controversial in Hollywood by saying something that everybody knows to be true and then refusing to apologize when people who know it to be true pretend to be mad about it. So I
don't know if I agree with his original statement, but I do agree with his decision to not apologize to the art nerds.
Okay, so we'll get into that. We're also going to talk about Pixar. Hoppers came out this weekend, did pretty good numbers at the box office, and the guy in charge over there is like, look, we're not looking to make a bunch of movies that, stand in for therapy. We're trying to make some money now. Of course, they should have been doing that the whole time. Yeah. But that's the problem, right? If past is prologue, they should have learned their lesson, but they're not learning their lesson. So we're going to get into that. Also, one of the big points of discussion during the Olympics was that Alysia, it's Alysia, right? I'm going to ask you every time, Alysia.
It's both. She was asked about it, and she said, my family says it a different way, and my friends say it a different way.
Can I say
it's
Alyssa?
Whatever you feel.
Okay, then I'm saying Alyssa, because it just makes more sense.
I'm going to say Alysia. I want to say Alysia, so I'm going to say it that way.
There, we're both her friends and family. We'll both say it. So Alysia Liu, who of course got gold at the Olympics, I believe she got more than one gold medal at the Olympics this year. She has come out and done an interview and has sort of reinforced what people were already saying prior to the Olympics, which is that she's super woke. During the Olympics, conservatives said, look, we don't care. She stood for the flag and she put her hand over her heart and she, respected the country. So we don't care what her politics were. Well, they care now, as we knew they would. Apparently she hadn't spoken extensively about all of this before, but you can use the hair color and other such indicators to give you a general idea of what someone's beliefs are. I don't generally care, really, because this is kind of what I expect to go. You don't make a living as an Olympian. It doesn't make a living doing that. You have to go on and get brand endorsements and
do the media tour.
Exactly. So
your own persona.
Her speaking out about Stop Asian Hate and Black Lives Matter and election things and climate change is literally the most unremarkable thing a 24-year-old or however old she is could ever possibly say. But it is interesting to see the people who were just a couple weeks ago saying that you know, we don't care as long as she puts her hand over her heart for the anthem. Now they're critiquing her, and I suppose those things can exist in separate spaces. You can critique her and still be glad that she respected the country at the anthem. So we're gonna get into that, and she's apparently working out some of her daddy issues live during these interviews. So we've got that. We've got a bunch of other stuff. I am trying to channel energy today. As I said to Mary right before we went live, I was like, look, I had to splash cold water on my face. So my guess is that if there ever was a day where Mary's going to have tech issues again, it's going to be today. So I am knocking on wood today, hoping that that or whatever this material is.
I think all will be well.
Let's hope so. So if you're ready, Mary, we can go. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go for it then.
So last episode, we discussed Maggie Gyllenhaal's internal battles with studio heads at Warner Brothers, to include a bunch of vulgarity, violence, and sexual violence in her second directorial feature, The Bride, which is a reimagined version of The Bride of Frankenstein. And now it has debuted and was a total flop, as expected. It opened with $7.3 million domestically, and it's on a $90 million budget, which is an insane amount of money to spend on something that was so obviously going to fail.
I imagine that Christian Bale cost a lot of that money. Like that, because so one of the critiques that I saw was, and said, regardless of whatever you think of the feminism of this movie, if you had made this movie for $5 to $7 million, it could have sat comfortably in the box office and probably made its money back and then some, just maybe not in its opening weekend. But if you're going to get Christian Bale to be in your movie and make what, from everything I'm being told, is described as Bonnie and Clyde mixed with the Joker, you know, with a huge dash of like hyper feminism towards the end or whatever it is, it's just never going to make its money back. $90 million is an untenable budget for them.
Yeah, and it Folie à Deux vibes for sure. Not the original Joker, but Folie à Deux. And not only did it flop at the box office, it's also reportedly being met with mass audience walkouts.
Look, I take anything from Screen Geek with a huge grain of salt. In the age of X and monetization, 7.6 million views on that post. Like, I don't know.
I have no idea if that's actually true. I didn't see a source for that, but it might be because it's, according to Maggie Gyllenhaal herself, a very disturbing watch, and it's the kind of movie that makes you want to look away.
Lick the vomit, as you said.
Lick the vomit. She really wanted that scene where Frankenstein licks black vomit off of the bride's neck, and there are all of these stills of Jessie Buckley with the black vomit on her face from the movie. And they say in Variety that The Bride is part of a growing wave of feminist horror. Movies that place women's autonomy, rage, and control at the center of the monster story. Experts say it's part of a broader shift redefining who the monster really is. Scholar Barbara Creed says instead of becoming an abject thing, the heroine owns it. And yeah, it's being touted as a feminist reimagining. And the film centers on the Bride of Frankenstein, a character historically silenced and destroyed in prior adaptations, now given a powerful voice and agency. Gyllenhaal's vision transforms her into a feminist avenger, reclaiming her narrative after being resurrected without her consent to serve a man she never knew. So there are themes of consent, gender violence, and female autonomy.
Oh, I'm sold. Look, I have so much money to spend. I think I'm going to go this weekend. Just let's go. Autonomy and consent, you say? That's what I look for in a movie. Like, yeah. Look, I just saw the trailer for the new Guy Ritchie movie with Jake Gyllenhaal and Henry Cavill, and it looks like a ton of fun. It's called In the Gray. Why would I want to go see that? Why would I want to go see a movie about two dudes being badass and going and getting in firefights and bombs going off? Why do that when I can go watch a movie about consent and bodily autonomy?
Exactly. And in that same New York Times interview where Maggie Gyllenhaal was complaining about the studio heads trying to edit her movie, she also spoke about why she decided to become a filmmaker instead of just an actress. And she says that she chose to be a director to fight sexism on the day that Trump was elected in 2016, to give women who have their mouth shut a voice. She says, maybe I'll get in trouble, but when I really became a director was the morning that Trump was first elected. So, first problem, female director. Second problem, she's a Hollywood Nepo baby. Third problem, she's a deranged feminist. One review said, I just watched The Bride. It's simply the worst movie of the year, even though we're only in March, and one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. Excellent trailers for a 0 out of 10 movie.
Maybe that's why people don't get excited about trailers anymore, is because they're so good at trailers now that they can hide the worst of the worst by cutting together something interesting looking.
Now, we had our first edition of The Spin before the box office numbers came in on Friday, which was Maggie Gyllenhaal basically blaming Warner Brothers for truncating her movie and saying, well, if it doesn't do well, it's going to be Warner Brothers' fault, not mine. Then Variety published this piece, you know, giving their reasons why they think it failed to inject new life into the box office. And they mentioned, first off, that it has an inauspicious release date. It was originally scheduled to debut in October last year, which would have given it proximity to Halloween. It is coming out at a weird time of year for sure, but that doesn't really hold water for me.
I mean,
that doesn't
seem
like...
So January is typically considered the month that you release the movies that you know are going to bomb, right?
Yeah.
The people actually wonder what I mean when I say this is the most January-looking movie I've ever seen. Her movie, oddly enough, wouldn't be one that I would put in that category. January, like when I think of like the most January movie ever, I think of some type of action movie that has no hook or nothing really unique about it. Like Mercy, which was the one that came out, the Chris Pratt one about the AI judge and trying to prove your innocence about a crime that you supposedly didn't commit to an AI judge. That seems like a January movie. This one definitely should have been an October release, though I don't think it would have mattered. I don't.
Well, they mentioned that one reason it had to be pushed back was because of Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein starring Jacob Elordi. And like, Netflix. If you release 2 Frankenstein movies in close proximity to each other, one of them is going to win out.
Oh, no.
They had to differentiate it.
Maybe with a movie being as bad as they're saying it was, maybe it couldn't have hurt for her to like hope that she could trick some people into going and seeing it, thinking it was his.
You could have contrived some sort of Barbenheimer dynamic between the two of them, but unfortunately, it was probably a decision that was out of her hands. They also mentioned the inflated budget for this movie, which, again, is insane. $90 million for basically an indie horror film is insane. They say The Bride cost way too much for an R-rated, genre-bending crime story with art house ambitions. When Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi began crafting their slate as Warner Brothers co-chairs, they placed a big emphasis on expensive, auteur-driven swings. It paid off in the case of Sinners.
But Ryan Coogler has way more pedigree than she does in the directorial sense. Sorry.
Yeah. Much of the studio's 2025 slate was populated by commercial winners such as Minecraft, Final Destination 6. But so far, their other gambles lost a lot of money. That
Mickey
includes
17.
Joker Folie à Deux, Mickey 17, yes, and One Battle After Another, which was an awards frontrunner, but only generated $209 million against a $140 million budget.
I'm shocked.
In a note to press on Sunday morning, Warner Brothers defended the results of The Bride, writing, "In an increasingly risk-averse business like ours, we believe the business is better served with studios taking bold swings on originals like this one. That's true, and Hollywood shouldn't stop investing in originality, but there has to be a way to take chances without betting the farm."
Yeah, you take those chances on a $20 million budget or or even a $30 million budget. You don't. Yeah, those are actually numbers you don't see a lot budget-wise. You don't, like, you see 45 million, you see 50, you see 75. You don't see like 20 or 30 million. Maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe I'll have to go look into it later and see if there's like, what's a movie that cost $20 million that's come out. But $90 million is just simply not going to work, especially like if you're not as good as Ryan Coogler is. And Ryan Coogler is at the very least very good at his job.
Another problem is just the fact that Maggie Gyllenhaal has taken center stage promoting this movie instead of the stars, Christian Bale and Jessie Buckley, because they're in the middle of award season, you know, going to luncheons and convincing people to vote for their movies. And that includes Jessie Buckley because she is on the award circuit for Hamnet, which was directed by Chloe Zhao.
Wait, that makes no sense. And I'll tell you why that makes no sense. Because I was told while I was reading some of the reviews for this, they said it's a shame that this movie's failing because this means that Maggie Gyllenhaal will never get to direct another movie again. Well, Chloe Zhao did The Eternals. How is it possible that if women never get another opportunity after one failure, that Chloe Zhao is currently in the running for an Oscar when she made a movie that lost a ton of money?
That is crazy, isn't it?
I'm shocked.
Yeah, one of the tweets about the failure of The Bride said, the sad thing about the flop is since it was made by a woman, it's very unlikely that she'll get new directing opportunities anytime soon.
She's a Gyllenhaal
Yet movies
first.
made by men flop all the damn time and they still get directing opportunities. We need change. Another one pointed out the same thing, but they said, I do understand that women are treated very harshly and unfairly in Hollywood as a director, but I do think Maggie Gyllenhaal is going to be just fine once she goes back to making much smaller budget movies. Chloe Zhao had a massive studio disappointment with The Eternals, yet quickly regained critical goodwill with Hamnet. Maggie will do just fine. Still, it's effing insane that she has to spend time in director's jail for a while, whereas someone like David O. Russell, an absolute scumbag, still gets work easily. And that is true of David O. Russell, but I mean, I'm more sympathetic to scumbag directors than people like Maggie Gyllenhaal, who are just as performative as it gets.
Well, I mean, but the thing is those guys are failing too. Like they're all making movies that cost hundreds of millions of dollars that end up, you know, they always end up with Margot Robbie and they always end up losing money and nobody ever ends up liking them.
Yeah, but still, just with the example of Chloe Zhao and countless others, female directors are not put in director's jail for having flops under their belt. Okay, that's just completely contrary to the facts. And another tweet pointed out, say what you will about the scumbags who ran Hollywood 25 years ago, but those guys certainly knew that what the American people want to see. You want to fix the film industry, take it away from the theater kids and give it back to the bullies and degenerates.
Well, I mean, you've heard me say dozens of times that movies were better when it seemed like some producer snorted a bunch of cocaine on a corporate office table while pitching ideas back and forth with other, you know, bullies snorting cocaine on office tables, pitching movie ideas. Yes. Better than you know who is kind of in director's jail? Patty Jenkins. At Wonder Woman 1980. So Wonder Woman 1984 came out in 2020. And she was supposed to do Star Wars Rogue Squadron. No idea if that's still happening. But it says Untitled Universal Lego Group Patty Jenkins movie is in pre-production. So maybe she's in director's jail.
I mean, it would only be fair, though. Even if that were true, like, that would be fair for people not to put up, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars for your movies when you consistently flop.
Also, the converse to that argument is that, okay, so say that what she's what they're positing is correct and that women don't get other opportunities but men do. That's not to mean that women should get more opportunities. It means that those men should get less. Like when your movie doesn't do well, it's not that you don't ever direct a movie again. It's just you shouldn't fail upwards. You should go back down budget-wise and be expected to deliver something that reinvigorates the public's interest and gets, you know, favor back on your side for from the studios. The other thing is somebody can be a good director and not be somebody designed to do $100 million movies.
Yeah, and they have to understand the type of audience that they're trying to reach. And if it's a niche audience, well, I'm sorry, but you can't get a $90 million budget for that.
Correct.
And last but not least, Variety did cite audience rejection. Reviews were weak. Moviegoers were downright dismissive, saddling The Bride with a C+ grade on CinemaScore exit polls. When word of mouth is that lethal, there's no amount of marketing magic or charming stories on talk shows that can convince people to get off the couch. That's the scary truth.
Word of mouth matters more now than it ever did, because a good opening weekend doesn't mean anything if they can't hold at the box office anymore. So... All right. Before we move on, we missed some 20s here. One from Shane H. Wilder. Did you get the one about Happy Napping Day? I don't know if you got
Sorry
that
about
one.
that, Shane. I didn't see that. Happy National Napping Day, Brett and Mary. Yesterday, I dropped a video on the importance of physical media. It stemmed from having a song stuck in my head and finding it was not streaming anywhere, so I had to order a used CD.
Oh, that is rough when you find out that something you want to watch or listen to isn't streaming somewhere. Though, I will say on the converse, maybe this is just me, but when Amazon Prime like re-uploads a show that I really, really like, I get unneeded, like almost scary excited. When they put In Plain Sight back on over the week, so they put In Plain Sight back on last week, which is a show that I like and I have on my MB server. But I was like, you know what? It hits different when you're watching the full quality version on Amazon Prime. Also, as I mentioned, I think on Thursday, the user interface remembered where I left off, even though they took it off the server back in like 2017. Still remembered.
I keep seeing a bunch of content from millennial parents who are finding alternatives to giving their children iPads.
Like what?
And they're giving them a portable DVD player or a Walkman or whatever, and I think that's a great idea.
You know what they should do is they should get them mini disc players, because mini disc players never got to really have their moment the way they should have.
Yes, like, that's one of them that I saw.
I was priced out of a mini disc player. I couldn't. I had a cousin who had a mini disc player, and I was always very jealous because my CD. I didn't even have like a good CD player. I had the one that had like 10 anti-skip protection, which means basically every right foot step was a skip from the CD. This is something you'll never understand because you grew up in the era of the iPod. But when you had a CD player, first of all, you wore Jinkos, so you had pockets big enough to put the CD player in it. And when you would walk, the CD would skip, unless you had one of those CD players with like really good skip protection, which I could not afford.
But it teaches good delayed gratification, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. We had a 20 over on Rumble from West 422. Says, Mary, I wasn't throwing shade at you over the Selena feet thing. I agree with you. It is gross and shameful. I was just checking if you had double standards about it. I was happy to see you don't. I'm assuming that's something we covered I mean, I know the feet thing was something we covered last week, but
I have no memory of what this was about. What's the shade? I have no idea.
Okay, well, that's fine. All right.
Okay.
We've got more stuff to get into. Let's move on.
Yes. Quentin Tarantino is being taken to task for his use of the N-word in his movies by Rosanna Arquette. She is actually doing promotion for Charlie XCX's mockumentary, The Moment. And somehow this came up because they were doing a retrospective on her career. And in her interview with The Times, it says, in 1994, Rosanna Arquette had a minor but memorable role in Pulp Fiction, playing the drug dealer Eric Stoltz's wife and telling John Travolta why she'd pierced her tongue. And she says about the movie, it's iconic, a great film on a lot of levels, but personally, I am over the use of the N-word. I hate it. I cannot stand that Tarantino has been given a hall pass. It's not art, it's just racist and creepy. And he did, in fact, write a line for himself to deliver in the movie where he does use the N-word. And that's not the first time that he has been criticized for that other uses of the N-word.
But
before.
As I pointed out, this is also the man who wrote a character that would get to, basically lick the feet of Salma Hayek and then inconspicuous, to no one, cast himself in that role. Guess what? When you're the director and the writer and you've got Quentin Tarantino power, it comes with certain privileges. And here's the funnier thing about it. Don't even pretend like the actors don't love the idea. Like, you just know that they just love the idea of him trying to embody this character. I don't believe Salma Hayek, I don't believe it bothered her one bit. And Samuel L. Jackson has defended Quentin Tarantino over the years, so has Jamie Foxx, because of the writing of his scripts. The converse of this would be to ask him to either censor himself and write something that doesn't feel authentic to the piece that they're writing, or it would be for him to write different subject matter where the word wouldn't fit.
Well, it's just funny that now she takes issue with it, but at the time in 1994, she was like, yeah, I was cool with the N-word back then. I've changed my mind since then.
we got a
I think
20.
she's...
we got a 20 from Henry Oria. Says, Mary and Brett, hope your day is going well. Random question. Did you guys ever watch Argo 2012 with Ben Affleck? How realistic was it really to what happened in Iran 47 years ago? Did you two enjoy the movie? Thoughts? I did really like the movie. From what I understand is they downplayed the Canadians' help in that movie, if I remember correctly. That was also one of those movies. Me and you were at one point, we're going to do a long form segment on the CIA's involvement in Hollywood. And that is one of those movies where the CIA had a lot of say in that. I believe they had a lot of say in the movie 13 Hours. And I believe they've had a lot of say in many things that have been made in Hollywood. So I did like that movie, but I like Ben Affleck. Also, he plays a Hispanic guy in that movie. And I always laugh at that one. That is a whitewash.
That's bizarre.
And basically the guy who it's based on, the real world person's like, yeah, why would I complain? Ben Affleck is playing me.
Well, I think Rosanna Arquette says the quiet part out loud right after her comment about the N-word in Pulp Fiction. They say the other reason that it leaves a sour taste is she was denied a percentage of the box office. I'm the only person who didn't get a back-end share of the takings. Everybody made money except me. Although she doesn't blame Quentin Tarantino for this, she blames Harvey Weinstein. She claims that in the 1990s, she went for a meeting with Harvey Weinstein about a script, and when she got to the Beverly Hills Hotel, she was told to go up to Weinstein's room, where he was waiting in a bathrobe and tried to put her hand on his penis. And she says, I faced the consequences for saying no. I'd had to pay the price, and that was presumably why she feels she was denied the back-end share of the box office for Pulp Fiction. Although, I mean, she is kind of throwing other women under the bus for saying, they made the trade-off for money.
They're saying minor characters. No way everybody on the movie got a back-end deal.
Yeah, she just said everybody made money.
That's not how that works. It was so it was like the story I was telling you about, which I think I'm going to cover tomorrow on the show, because there's a recent article about Gillian Anderson talking about fighting for equal pay in Hollywood. And I guess to be fair, it is kind of crazy that when the X-Files got brought back in 2016, they only offered her half of what David Duchovny was being offered, despite the fact that they were co-leads and she is every bit as integral to the plot as he is. You could even say more so, because at a certain point in the later seasons during its original run, he left and she kept going, and it still limped on for another season or two. But it also connects with the Christina Applegate stuff and her talking about, was it Anchorman, where she's like, I forget which movie it was. Basically, they didn't offer me enough money, and basically Will Ferrell had to take it out of his paycheck to pay her.
Yeah, I mean, credit to people like Neve Campbell for standing on business in regard to paychecks. But also, I have to give Quentin Tarantino credit for standing by his decisions as well. And Variety brought up this 2022 appearance on Chris Wallace's podcast where Tarantino...
Oh, mic cut out. Get your mic back right there. I'm going to pull up the clip right here so we can talk about the... or no, you know what? We should watch the cracked clip, because Mary was pointing that out beforehand, that the audio on this where she says that he's talking with the black scent.
Are we back?
Yeah, you're back. Do you want to listen to the clip of him with the black scent first, or do you want to talk about Chris Wallace first?
I'll mention his comment to Chris Wallace first. Right. So he said, in regard to people who are offended by his use of the N-word or graphic displays of violence in his films, then see something else. If you have a problem with my movies, then they aren't the movies that you should go to see. Apparently, I'm not making them for you. And
that's what he
this
should
Rosanna
say.
Arquette comment is also another example of, you know, a white woman being offended on behalf of Black people. Meanwhile, Samuel L. Jackson has vocally defended Quentin Tarantino's use of the N-word.
Jamie Foxx too. You know what else? You know why else he should get credit for this is, do you remember, maybe you don't remember this, but when they were on the press tour for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think it was Scarlett Johansson or Margot Robbie. I don't remember who it was in that movie. That basically like, why does she have a role with like no lines? Isn't this sexist? And he just says, I reject your premise, and then just stop. He just basically said you're wrong and moved on.
Good for him.
Yep.
Yeah, honestly, I will say what's more offensive than Tarantino's multiple uses of the N-word in his scripts. I do find his fake, totally put on black scent more offensive by far.
This
is him attempting to have a normal conversation with Black people, and he just cannot help himself.
Here we go.
From using AAVE.
If he had sent me something that I plug into my computer, I don't know if I would have ever heard it. All right, hey, download this. I don't know how to do that. All right, you know, so he put it on a cassette tape.
Okay, that's almost more than I can stand.
No, keep going.
Then Jamie, my man,
secondhand
all right,
all around.
goes to the BET Awards, comes back with Rick Ross. Rick Ross and the whole posse. We all got contact high on the set that day. The whole MG.
Yeah. Well, what happened was.
All right.
So I find that more offensive because it's not scripted and it's not in service of a story. He just seems incapable of having a normal conversation with Black people on a talk show.
Yep.
Just weird to me, but I guess, you know, he gets away with it. When you're Tarantino, they let you do it.
That's what it is. And look, if you wanted to have an actual intellectual discussion about like who gets to decide what is or isn't art, the first people I would disqualify, ironically enough, are people who made the art 30 years prior and then decide they don't like it anymore. Like, that is the most annoying classification.
You mean Rosanna Arquette?
Yes. Like, so the most annoying classification of Hollywood right now is the people that you could classify as the ones that pull the ladder up behind them to say, this was acceptable when I did it. But now that I've made my money, well, she didn't make that much money because she apparently didn't get a back-end deal on it, but it's the person who says, look, this type of movie was okay when I was making it. This type of comedy was okay when I was doing it. All of this stuff is acceptable, but now that I'm a little bit older and a little bit more progressive, now it's unacceptable. Meanwhile, Samuel L. Jackson and Jamie Foxx are the ones who I guess are forced to come out and defend this guy. She can't muster up the courage to be like, look, just because it's something that makes you flinch doesn't mean it isn't art.
I don't think that Tarantino would even necessarily need the defense of Black colleagues for this decision. It's just, I don't think that that's necessary to justify the creative decision that he made.
Yeah.
But they were asked about it, and they mentioned Samuel L. Jackson has long defended Tarantino's use of the slur in his film. Thank you. Another awkward.
You know what the funny
for Django Unchained.
Yeah. The funnier version of this, though, is if we find out that he actually ghostwrites for rappers. That's funnier. If all of the N-words were being used in rap songs that he was writing.
The 2012 action Western drew significant backlash at the time of release for its frequent use of the N-word, which is said in the film nearly 110 times. And in the 2019 documentary QT8, The First Eight, which chronicles the first 21 years of Tarantino's filmmaking career, Samuel L. Jackson said, "You take 12 Years a Slave, which is supposedly made by an auteur. Steve McQueen is very different than Quentin. When you have a song that says the N-word in it 300 times, nobody says shit. So it's okay for Steve McQueen to use the N-word because he's artistically attacking the system and the way people think and feel. But Quentin is just doing it to just strike the blackboard with his nails. That's not true. There's no dishonesty in anything that Tarantino writes or how people talk, feel, or speak in his movies."
Yep. I think that's
not
fair.
that he needed, you know,
Defense.
a black person to underwrite his entire career and his creative decisions, but it doesn't hurt.
Look, I'm not looking to any of the Arquettes outside of maybe David Arquette, who might be the only one who I'm going to trust on the definition of art. I'm certainly not going to take Patricia Arquette or Roseanne, like either of them. Like, they're both annoying. So,
Is she implying, by the way, that her sister said yes to Harvey Weinstein?
I don't know.
Like, I don't know.
We
That
got
was
a
just
20.
an interesting note.
We got a 20 here from Shane H. Wilder. He says, the mini disc found use in commercial audio production. I had to use one in college for an audio production class. They quit using it when recorder production ended in 2020. They just ended blank disc production last year. Rip. That's
Yeah.
rough. All right. What would you like to see, cringe or cute of the day?
Let's see the cringe first. This is Chapel Roan trying to own the paparazzi in Paris by recording them back.
Okay.
Which is just not doing anything.
Here we go. He could have gone the Justin Bieber route. He just threw like a water bottle at the paparazzi the other day.
He did?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Disregarded
really
as a
thinks she's
human.
doing
This is what
something
it's
here.
like. So I'm just trying to go to dinner, and I've asked these people several times.
Like, you know, you're just making it more interesting for them to
Person I've
continue
asked
recording you
several
and taking
times
photos of you.
They're like, Chapel Roan Chapel Roan's bizarre behavior intensified as she started recording or talking to herself on her phone. Well, people shot photos of her.
to go away, and they will not. They're hiding their face because they're ashamed. Because I've asked them.
That guy's not hiding his face. He literally just said hi.
These are all the people that.
Well, that's a fan right there, I think.
Anyways, yes, she's I still stand. Sorry, I still
Never
stand.
seen anyone so resistant to the reality of being a celebrity.
This one is also cringy. I don't know if you saw this one of the man being exposed as Minnie Mouse.
What is this?
It's,
Is this a real? Is this like an actual Disney park character?
I hope not. But he doesn't look happy that they've recorded
Damn.
him.
He just flipped us off.
Yep, that's rude.
That's crazy.
All right, let's move on. All right, cue of the day. Here we go. This one's from Matt Gingell. How do you pronounce that one when you say his
I
name?
think it's Gingell.
Gingell. He, I think I saw him on Rumble last week saying that we hadn't got to his pet yet, and I felt bad, so I went out and I said, resubmit it. I want to make sure we get it in for Monday. So here we are. Says it's been 1 year since we picked up. I have no idea how to pronounce that name, so I'm not even going to try. True to her her succubus taken name, she is loved by everybody. She is a very cute dog.
Aw. Very cute. But I want to hear you attempt the name, though.
Zara Baba Dubuth.
Okay, close enough.
That's what I'm gonna.
You tried.
That's what I'm gonna go with. Close enough.
I'll give you credit for trying.
If he says I'm wrong, it's not my fault. All right, we've got a bunch of stuff to keep getting into today. Let's move on to Timothee Chalamet.
Timothee Chalamet is just vibing in Japan while the entire internet attacks him for saying that ballet and opera are dying art forms. So this came from a discussion that he had with Matthew McConaughey. It was quite a while ago. It was a couple weeks ago, but it resurfaced because the ballet and opera communities are deeply offended at his statement saying that, you know, these are dying art forms, and as a movie star, he would like to see theaters thriving. He doesn't want to be responsible for keeping his art form alive and resuscitating it like they are. And now, you know, everybody's coming after him. He's choosing not to break his silence or apologize to the art nerds. And meanwhile, this is what he's up to in Japan. He's on some game show. Can we play that?
Yes. Here we go. Everything I see of Japanese television tells me it's exactly the type of thing I should be watching.
Okay, last one. This thing's heavy. Okay. Yeah!
Shia LaBeouf in him. I'm not gonna lie. He's got some Shia LaBeouf energy.
Really? Yeah.
He's chaotic like Shia LaBeouf.
He's just having the time of his life. He's just living his best life, and the art nerds online are absolutely losing their minds because he isn't, you know, catering to their demands. He's not groveling for their approval. And, you know, this isn't the first time that he has offended art nerds in the past. There is now a compilation of him saying the same exact thing about ballet and opera and theatrical performances. Let's play that.
Okay. Here we go.
I love movies. I love acting. I love going to movies. I was kind of getting scared when I was younger that maybe it was becoming like opera or something, like an outdated art form or something.
I was like, no woe is me thing, but you start working on movies, you start acting and pursuing your thing, and like, I started to get the sense maybe it was like opera or ballet or something. It's kind of like a dying art form or something. And then like we're calling by her name and Lady Bird.
I grew up backstage at the New York City Ballet. My grandmother danced in the New York City Ballet. My mother danced in the New York City Ballet. My sister danced in the New York City Ballet.
He's got some generational trauma. He must just hate his family.
I grew up dreaming big backstage at the Coke Theater in New York, you know?
And does that help then in situations like this?
Hugely. I'm like a Venn diagram of the best cultural influences of the 21st century and 20th century. And I don't want to be working in ballet or opera or, you know, things where it's like, hey, keep this thing alive, even though no one cares about this anymore. All respect to the ballet and opera people out there. I just lost 14 cents in viewership, but damn, I just took shots for no reason.
That's not a shot. I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay. So the thing is that if he hadn't acknowledged that he was taking shots, it probably would have passed by the same way it did before, all the other times he said it.
Right, that one comment about losing 14 cents in viewership was a little bit
spice on top of the diss.
Yeah, so as you can see, he's built for himself a long track record of dissing the art nerd community, and it's finally caught up to him. But at this point, I do feel like the backlash is becoming performative and a virtue signal.
It is.
Why is Doja Cat talking about this? Mm-hmm. Let's just play this video of Doja Cat as well, jumping into the fray.
In her opera is 400 years old. Ballet is 500 years old. Somebody named Timothée Chalamet had the nerve, big guy, by the way, had the nerve to say on camera that nobody cares about it. I'm sure you could walk into an opera theater right now. Seats will be filled out, and nobody's saying a word as the performance is.
Okay, so this is the worst. You know the meme? You know the meme that basically says how much liberal discourse is just pretending to not know what you're talking about, thus making having any conversation impossible? That's what she's doing here. She says... he said nobody cares about it, but if you went to an opera, all the seats would be filled and all those people would care. That's not what he's saying, and she knows that. All of these people know that. Let's continue.
Yeah, it's definitely turning into a major virtue signal here. Jamie Lee Curtis also jumped in. She reposted a video that was clapping back at Timothée Chalamet, saying that actors are hypocritical for dissing theatrical performers because, you know, the first thing that they do when they want to get more industry credibility is they go and star in a play or they go on a run on Broadway. And it's, you know, they're vying for EGOTs.
Unless he's doing that, then he's fine. Like,
I'll wait and see if that ever happens. And, you know, I think that he would have more grounds to speak on the subject, given that his grandmother, mother, and sister are all ballet performers. Mm-hmm. So this is something that he grew up around. And literally everyone is trying to cash in on all of the clout from dissing him right now, especially because he is supposedly jeopardizing his Oscar by taking shots at theater.
Theoretically, not true because the voting ended the day before this came out. So, you know, I mean, not that I would put it past them to just be lying about that and then go back and like, it'd be funny if you look at the card and they cross his name out.
Yeah.
And just write in Michael B. Jordan underneath.
But now they're pretending to extend an olive branch to Timothee Chalamet to offer him an opportunity to redeem himself. So there are several troops, according to Deadline, extending this olive branch. The English National Opera offered him free tickets to help him fall back in love with opera anytime. This is your official invitation. Let's see if we can change your mind. Right, because the problem is that Timothee Chalamet can't afford tickets to see an opera. Right.
I do want to point out, before we move on, Matt Gingell, he joined as a channel member. He said on Friday, he said if we show his dog as cute of the day, he would join as a channel member. I did not even put it in the chat, but I didn't remember till after he joined. So he is a man of his word. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you for making good on that. And also, ballerinas at the New York City Ballet have spoken out following his offensive comments, saying, I want to challenge Timothee to come into the studio, create and be part of something that has stood the test of time. Show your mother the respect she deserves. It's not the idea that he disparaged ballet and opera that bothers me, but the suggestion that he would have talent and aptitude for those international level art forms. Timmy, I didn't know you were a world-class dancer or opera singer who simply chose not to pursue that career because acting is more popular.
Did he
Good
say
luck
that?
in the Oscar race.
Did he say that? Did he say I could have done that, but I decided not to?
No,
So
he didn't.
They're just making up arguments in their head. It was like yesterday when I said Henry Cavill isn't a box office draw, and people are like, I like him a lot. Like, you're wrong. I'm like, then they're like, I like his movies. He picks good roles. I'm like, that's not what I said. I didn't say that he was picking bad roles. I said he on his own is not a box office draw.
I'm just going to say it. I think that these ballerinas just have a crush on Timothee Chalamet and they're negging him. And they actually wish that he would come and visit so they can hit on him.
This is the most important part of this, though. It's something me and you talk about all the time, which is that there is a layer of fakeness that is required in these industries. It's actually one of those things that I got really annoyed with back in the day when like musicians would cross over genres. And I was like, you're allowed to not like stuff. If you don't like a genre of music, you should be allowed to say that genre fucking sucks. If you don't like a type of movie or an actor, you should just be like, I don't like him. It's like everybody was mad when Tarantino said he didn't like Matthew Lillard. And Matthew Lillard's like, I was really sad. Who cares? So fucking what? Like, people don't like stuff. It happens all the time.
Yeah, and there's this expectation that if you don't like something, you have to qualify your statement to no end to not offend anyone and be like, no hate if you enjoy it. It just wasn't my personal taste and you're totally valid, seen and heard if you're a fan.
But the thing is, most people are halfway. Most people are that way, though. And that doesn't make them wrong to quantify, to be like, look, I don't like it. But then you feel that need to be like, look, if you like it, fine. Because no actual person's like, I fucking hate this, and you should hate it too. Because that's not a normal thing.
He's not even saying that he's not a fan of theatrical performances. Correct. He merely said that they have been eclipsed as forms of entertainment, and that is true. That is a fact. And, you know, there should be strides made to change that by people who actually work in theater, who are dancers or singers, and they should be the ones responsible for reviving it, not someone in Hollywood. That's not his responsibility. It's not his industry or space. But, you know, that's what I was saying last week. Like, the perception is that things like opera or ballet are inaccessible to the public, where, you know, if you ask the average person what a ticket to an opera is, it costs these days, they'd probably guess that it's like $1,000. It is far more accessible than people believe, but
I have a question for you.
No, that's not going to change because Timothee Chalamet becomes your knight in shining armor, okay?
You went recently, right? To like an opera?
Yeah.
What was the dress code?
There isn't a dress code.
See, I bet you that prevents a lot of people. They don't know what to wear.
I mean, I think that there are a lot of factors. That's probably one of them, is just that people feel like they don't socially fit into whoever they believe sees operas or goes to a ballet. But like, as far as I could tell, people were there like in just their casual clothes. Like it wasn't this black tie event.
That is what the opera and these things should be doing to try and draw more people in, is show that it is not for the hoity-toities, that you can go dressed in a jeans and t-shirt.
Well, I also think that it would be fine if it were hoity-toity or whatever, if it had a dress code.
That does still exist. That does still exist at the upper echelons of it, right? I'm assuming that when you see the ones in the movies where they all show up in a black tie, that's some type of expected social behavior for that specific one.
Yeah, and I think that's totally okay. You know, if you want to elevate the level of decorum and propriety around this art form, like, I think that's totally fine. But people just have a lot of stereotypes in their minds about things like opera and ballet because they haven't been exposed to it. And again, that's not Timothee's problem to fix. And now I just feel like they're planting a bunch of negative stories about him in the media for the purpose of tarnishing his reputation, ruining his chances at winning an Oscar. He's probably not going to win the Oscar anyway. I could be proven wrong, but it doesn't look likely to me at this point. There is this story that was published in the Daily Mail over the weekend. Timothée Chalamet's private chef reveals that he makes him 3 breakfasts on set, and the pampered actor will only eat 1 and discard the rest.
Good for him. You know what? Good for him. Keep the world thin.
However, the community note says here the caption is intentionally misleading. The actual quote from the article is, I do 3 different things for Tim, and he'll have 1 thing. And Timothee turned around and went, hey, man, why don't you have the other 2 things? So it's not exactly as they framed it, that he throws away massive amounts of gourmet food on
set. It's funnier if he does do that. If
Even
he literally
if he did, who cares?
He pours it out in front of the chef and just says,
literally,
no.
Who cares?
We got a 20 here from Pat the Plumber. Says, my hero Brett Dasovic got me all confused with the button up. I don't know what's going on, but I like it.
I like it too.
Thank you.
I think it's a good look.
Timothée Chalamet is the last bastion of just unapologetic white boy. And
yeah, they're kind of forcing me into a position where I have to defend him. Like, I'm almost a fan at this point, and I didn't care about him before. I think the people who are the most offended by his comments about ballet and opera are the people that, you know, created this persona for him in their minds and formed a parasocial relationship with him where he was like their theater kid, artsy indie film darling.
He's almost completely shed that now. Like, that was,
because
I think that's
such a bro.
Yeah.
It couldn't hold.
I think everybody thought of him that way. Because even his big blockbusters were Dune, which still has the tinge of, I mean, it's genre, but it's still art nerd genre. Right?
Yeah.
So he's almost complete. And then suddenly he shows up on like College Game Day for football. And you're like, okay.
And he's dating one of the Kardashians.
Correct.
You know, like, he's just actually more of a normal person than people once believed him to be. And they kind of romanticized this different version of him that was never real.
Yep. All right, let's move on. Actually, before we move on, we got a 20 here from Francisco Sanchez Jr. Says, I mean, Quentin Tarantino called Paul Dano weak sauce and a non-entity. He was referring to his performance in Paul Thomas Anderson's There Will Be Blood. I'm here for that kind of talk.
I thought it was hilarious, yeah.
Look, and here's the thing. An actor would benefit from being just like, I better up my game then, rather than being like all butthurt about it. But
didn't Paul Dano like reply to that in some way?
I
forget what he said in response, but I think he took it well, from what I recall.
Like, and they should. And look, you're allowed to not like things. There are, you know, every day people do things that you probably don't, that wouldn't interest you and aren't that popular, and that's fine. That should be okay. You shouldn't be forced to pretend like you like things for the sake of social nicety. It's like what I was saying earlier. I tweeted about Alan Ritchson saying like he's excited about the new season of Reacher. He thinks it's the best one yet. I'm like, I'm waiting for the actor who's just like, honestly, We tried, but it's kind of mid. Like somewhere between second and third season, but not as good as the first. Like I want to see an actor do that. It actually might trick me into wanting to watch something more. Kind of like in Miracle on 34th Street, where the Santa Claus tells the lady that she can get the doll cheaper across the street at Shoppers Express or whatever it is. And the lady says, any store that tells me where a better priced version of it is deserves my business. Your honesty will mean that you will deserve my business. So just be honest.
That's kind of beautiful.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on.
So Pixar has been responsible for a string of flop movies over the past decade. And in a new interview in the Wall Street Journal with their chief creative officer, Pete Docter, he basically issues a mea culpa for not keeping the studio in line this whole time. He has a new plan, and he's going to stop them from doing all of these self-insert stories that are essentially therapy sessions for the directors of these films who are trying to, process their childhood trauma through a movie for kids that costs hundreds of millions of dollars to make. Mm-hmm. And they titled it, Pixar Needs Its Next Hit Franchise. Can Its Reluctant Leader Deliver? The admission here is basically that they replaced the former CCO, John Lasseter, after he was Me Too'd in 2018 with Pete Docter. And Pete Docter is kind of a pushover. He's, sometimes you need a scumbag in charge to keep people in line. And unfortunately, that was John Lasseter, and they kicked him to the curb, and he had to apologize. And he was replaced with a guy who kind of just let people vibe and tell stories that only resonated with them instead of a mass audience.
By the way, and I'm going to get into this tomorrow on the show. I completely forgot to pitch this when we were coming up with the topics today. You know what? You know where John Lasseter is going next is with all of the other canceled actors, and that's to Paramount.
Yeah.
Max Landis, John Lasseter. They put Johnny Depp in here, which is not fair, of course, given that he was acquitted. But Brett Ratner, they're all going over to Paramount because they can get top level artists on the cheap.
This is true. Yeah, it's land for misfit toys or whatever. So they say in this article, Pixar chief creative officer Pete Docter finished strumming his ukulele and folded his 6'5" frame to explain that the reason the studio behind Toy Story is struggling to find its next hit franchise might be him. I got into animation because it's easier to draw people than talk to them. He is responsible for Monsters, Inc., Up, and Inside Out. In his early years managing Pixar's cadre of filmmakers, he admitted, I probably over-indexed on do whatever you want. You don't say.
But the thing, that's what the artist pitch is the way for, if you listen to any artist when their movies are coming out, to them, the only way forward, if you want your movies to be successful, is to just go like this. Go ahead. Do whatever you want. Just close your eyes and let them make whatever they want. And then you get Maggie Gyllenhaal, who gets angry when your $7 million movie that cost $90 million to make has to edit some stuff out because there's too much drinking of vomit.
Yeah. Docter's first 3 movies were among an extraordinary string of hits Pixar made from 1995 through 2019, many of which became long-lasting franchises for Disney. Cars, Ratatouille, Toy Story. Now Pixar is pumping out sequels like Inside Out 2, but it hasn't had an original success since 2017's Coco. Current and former employees say one of the biggest reasons is that the conflict-averse Pete Docter encouraged new directors to make autobiographical movies that too many audience members struggled to connect with.
His job is not to be nice. His job should be to tell you that your idea sucks and that you need to do something else.
But it was like he kind of just fell into this position on accident because they pushed out the former guy who was, hugging people without their consent or something. After a series of disappointments, culminating in last year's bomb, Elio, Pete Docter is pushing Pixar to re-embrace the universally relatable concepts like talking toys and monsters in the closet that once made it a juggernaut. He says, as time has gone on, I realized my job is to make sure the films appeal to everybody. And their newest step in that direction is Hoppers, a comedy about a girl who hops her consciousness into a beaver and talks to animals, that opened this week and has received overwhelmingly positive reviews. But the odds of success are longer than in the age of Finding Nemo and WALL-E. Across Hollywood, original movies are struggling to get people off their phones and into theaters. Pixarians, as they call themselves, are painfully aware that the most successful original animated film in recent years was a streaming hit on Netflix, K-pop Demon Hunters. Disney's business model is built on box office success. And they say that Pixar in the past picked original movies based only on the quality of the idea, and now part of the approval process is gauging sequel potential, because of course everything has to become a 10-part franchise that lasts our entire lifetimes.
What's weird is like, so they always talk about that, right? And then you get like the scene at the end that like inserts some possibility for a sequel. But if a movie's made well enough, you don't need that. You could make a movie well on its own and still make a sequel without any scene at the end that clearly means you're baiting for a sequel movie. Like they're like any good writer worth his salt can find a way to do that.
Right. And the original Toy Story could have been a standalone movie with no sequels whatsoever, and it would have been just as beloved without, 5 more. But that's coming in June this year. Toy Story 5, widely expected to be a blockbuster. They have a third Incredibles movie for 2028 and a second Coco in 2029, which is insane because that would be a 12-year gap between the first and second movie.
I mean, that's not even... They're about to make another Conan movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and we're talking like 40 years after the original, so,
And they're also going to be making a third Monsters, Inc. movie, but there's no release date set for that. Pixar president Jim Morris, who runs the business side of the studio, said the reason for the switch is simple, just so that we're profitable enough to persist. So they admit it's not about creativity, it's not about originality anymore. We just literally need sequels in order to stay financially afloat.
So here's a question for you. Personality types. So when you think of this guy's personality type, right? He's basically they're saying that he's inoffensive and he's non-confrontational and he's hands-off and he lets these people do what they want. That somehow would make more sense in my mind with somebody who's bookish and good with numbers. Yet they have a separate dude whose job is just for business, but the guy who's good at business also has to be harsh because he has to be like, look, these are what the numbers say. This is what works. This is what doesn't work. They need somebody there whose job it is to tell people no. Guess what? McDonald's CEO probably nixes an idea if it's not as good as the big arch, right? Maybe somebody suggested the little arch, and he's like, we're not in the business of making little burgers here. Like, the CEO's job is not to make everybody happy that works for him. His job is to make the people who are shareholders happy. That's who pays his bills.
Pete Docter is like the substitute teacher who gets bullied by the entire classroom. And gets like stuff thrown at him by the bad students because their homeroom teacher is out for the day. Like, that's who Pete Docter is. And they say until 2018, Pixar movies were filtered through the taste of John Lasseter, the loudest voice and final say among a group of directors, the brain trust who provided feedback on every project at the company that created computer animation. Pete Docter was the least assertive member, according to people who worked with him, and seemed happiest focusing on the emotional core of his own movies.
It's like literally, could you find a worse person for a job that is that front facing and requires you to interface with that many different levels of business?
Yeah, and it's just like, I don't know all of the details of John Lasseter's whole Me Too scandal.
It's been so long.
But it sounds pretty dubious. It just says that he hugged and touched employees non-consensually. But in 2019, or 2018 rather, that could have meant anything.
He went to work for DreamWorks, if I remember correctly. I don't remember where he went after Pixar, but he was still working.
But at that point, it says Pete Docter was the only veteran filmmaker at Pixar willing to replace John Lasseter as CCO. He said, I don't want to be running the studio. I've gotten used to just directing, but somebody has to do it.
I mean,
so he wasn't interested in being a leader in the first place, which is why he got steamrolled by a bunch of people trying to make therapy movies.
It also throws cold water on one of the romantic ideas people have of power, which is that the person who's best suited for it is the one who doesn't want the job. Well, guess what? This guy didn't want the job, and he wasn't good at it. So...
Yeah. At Pixar, Pete Docter was described as supportive, humble. They said that he gave less direct feedback than John Lasseter ever did and seemed to never want to be the bad guy. And the first original movies Pixar made under Pete Docter included Luca, about a shy Italian boy who is secretly a sea creature. This one, I believe, if I recall correctly, was said to be an allegory for growing up as a gay kid in the closet. And Turning Red, about a Chinese-Canadian girl who transforms into a giant panda during puberty. Both were inspired by their directors' experiences growing up, which no one cares about. No one cares about your childhood trauma. Stop. Gauging their success was difficult because they came out during the pandemic. Okay, that gives you a perfect excuse to evade responsibility for the failure. They were just... dumped onto Disney Plus at the time, and they were dissatisfied with that.
None of that even matters. It doesn't. They wouldn't have done well either way.
Yeah, although I guess we're never gonna know. But all were popular during their first few months online, including Pete Docter's directed Soul, which won 2 Oscars. Again, Oscars are not worth anything unless the movie makes money, but they weren't as heavily rewatched as Encanto from Pixar's sibling studio Walt Disney Animation, the only new franchise that Disney has created since 2020. Pixarians, frustrated that their streaming releases didn't resonate more, grew panicked after the flop of their first film back in theaters, which was Lightyear in 2022. And a lot of people said that that was because of a blink if you miss it gay kiss that was towards the end of the movie. And while that didn't help the situation, it was mostly because it was a totally confused pitch for a movie related to Toy Story. It wasn't about Buzz Lightyear. It was about like this, reimagined version of Buzz Lightyear as a real person. It was lame. And then the next year's original Elemental from Pixar was featuring fire and water that symbolized the director's experience growing up in an immigrant family. Okay, lame. No one cares. In late 2023, Pete Docter gathered Pixar's staff and he delivered a blunt message. He said they had erred in making so many autobiographical movies and they needed more broadly commercial hooks. They remembered it as his come to Jesus speech.
Broadly
time.
Commercial hooks, is that like some type of euphemism for white supremacy?
It sounds like it, yeah. At that time, Pixar's leadership showed an in-progress film called Be Free, which was short for Best Friends, to Bob Iger and other Disney execs. Soon after, Pete Docter canceled the project, which was based on its director's adolescent experience with a platonic breakup.
Well, there was also, remember when the Steven Spielberg made like The Fabelmans, which is basically about his life, right? And then nobody cared because nobody cares.
Yeah, and it's not going to be successful just because it has Spielberg's name attached to it. Pixar has successfully reworked many troubled movies like Brave, so employees were stunned when a project 3 years in the works was scrapped. It's super hard to make sure we're not just settling for a film getting better, but ensuring that it's great, says Pixar's senior vice president. Docter made a different but equally dramatic decision with Elio. Test audiences liked the story, but they wouldn't pay to see it in a theater. Yeah. That's your problem.
That's the definition of most of these movies these days, is that it's like, and that's what people were saying about Frankenstein. Like, there was some people that were saying, like, yeah, wait till it comes out in streaming and then you'll be fine. Which is really just an insult.
Right, which also doesn't even mean that they would watch it on streaming. Yeah. They're probably just being polite. So with Elio, they basically pushed out the original director, Adrian Molina. And I remember us covering this on the channel because people were throwing an absolute tantrum on social media when this story came out. He had to leave the movie, and the title character of Elio was inspired by his childhood. Surprise, surprise.
Yep.
2 new directors made a slew of changes, including excising elements that suggested Elio was gay. Earlier versions included a pink bicycle and a scene in which Elio imagined raising a child with his male crush, according to people who worked on the movie. So nobody wants that. The changes disappointed some at Pixar, which has gender-neutral bathrooms and a history of supporting LGBT employees. They were further discouraged by the removal of references to a character being transgender in a Disney Plus series called Win or Lose. Doctor said Pixar found out some parents didn't want entertainment to force them to have a conversation they weren't ready for with their children. He said, "We're making a movie, not hundreds of millions of dollars worth of therapy."
Yeah.
And after a 15-month delay for the overhaul, Elio tested slightly better than the original version, but still was a massive flop, losing Disney more than $100 million.
Yep.
Win or Lose was part of a short-lived move into TV for Pixar, which added hundreds of employees to support the launch and ultimately released just 2 series, neither of which was a hit. And that reversal was a big reason for mass layoffs, which shrunk Pixar from 1,500 to 1,100 employees. They worry that if they don't up their game, more cuts could come. While other animation studios increasingly use overseas crews to save money, Pixar often spends more than $200 million making each film in the Bay Area. And it also hasn't integrated generative AI into their production process, which involves years of creative exploration followed by last-minute overhauls.
Wait, does that mean that the people who work or love Pixar have to make a decision? So what do you want more? Do you want stories that are autobiographical and progressive, or do you want stuff made in the U.S.? Apparently you can't have both.
Yeah, I don't like the idea that our 2 options are autobiographical therapy sessions or algorithmic.
That's all you get?
AI generated slop, but okay. Much of Inside Out 2 was made in a frantic crunch because the filmmakers didn't finalize their story until the fall before its June 2024 release. Doctor served as the unofficial co-director when there wasn't much time for the original to review the footage. It ended up being Pixar's biggest hit, grossing $1.7 billion. And the studio is making some movies more efficiently than ever, including Toy Story 5. With its shrinking number of originals, Pixar is trying to balance returning to broad commercial concepts while pushing the boundaries of its tried, true, and some tired formula. Next year's Gato, about a feline thief in Venice, features animal fur and human hair that look like they were painted by hand. Ono Ghost Market, which was originally going to be a streaming series, is inspired by Asian myths about supernatural bazaars where the living and dead interact.
Okay, so that's actually a fair idea, right? So people constantly say that they're looking for representation that's actually something that's not just race swapping or gender swapping a character, right? So that actually seems like something that they're leaning into that involves identity, but not in a pandery, autobiographical, sense that focuses on self, instead focusing on an entire culture.
Right. Encanto and Coco definitely showed that that's possible and it can be successful. However, although this entire piece is about Pixar having a come to Jesus moment and Pete Docter, growing some nuts, it looks like they have not actually learned their lesson because they rehired the director of Turning Red for another movie. Why? Why? Go to director jail. Now that I've heard that term, I'm going to keep using it. She should go to director jail.
You have been sentenced.
And they're working on a musical with her. And then they mention Hoppers, which is their most recent release. It says it features zanier cartoon comedy and less tear-inducing pathos than audiences may expect from the studio behind Up. this is the Steven universification of all animated content now, where everything, or it's maybe even like the BoJack Horsemanification of children's entertainment. It's way too dedicated to appealing to like these, overgrown, arrested development millennials who haven't processed their childhood trauma, and they need to use children's entertainment to, satisfy their own egos. That's really the problem. And then they mention that Hoppers had to also get edited during production to tone down its pro-environmentalism story in an effort to make it more balanced, because it felt like a message movie, which is always a problem.
Well, I was just telling the other day about like the guys at Warner Brothers told the people making The Pit, like, could you make your episode about ice more even? And I was like, why is there an episode about ice set in a hospital? The fuck?
Yeah. I don't really understand still what Hoppers is supposed to be about.
You should ask Alex Clark.
Yeah, I did want to share Alex Clark's like mini review on X for Hoppers, because she believes that it's inappropriate for young children. She said that parents shouldn't take kids under 10 to see Hoppers, and only kids 10 to 13 should see it with parents and have a discussion afterwards. According to her, it's the darkest Pixar film with heavy themes, destruction and violence due to the main character's selfishness and bad decisions. None of the main human characters are likable, and it promotes a message of all people are good inside and that animals should be elevated to the same level of humans. It's completely void of joy. It's atypical for a Pixar film, only a handful of laughs, and instead a focus on heavy and serious topics. I can't imagine any children wanting to watch this film a second time, let alone over and over again. So not sure what to make of that take in conjunction with what we saw in the Wall Street Journal, where it says it's supposed to be like humorous and not dark at all. But maybe they should have kept it in production hell for longer before releasing it.
All right, let's move on. We've got more stuff to get into.
Yeah, so the last time that we talked about Alysia Liu, we were kind of unpacking why she seems to have had such a cultural impact and, why she has gained her fan base, despite most of the time Olympic athletes being known just for their athleticism. It's really her personality that made her shine and made her, the America's sweetheart. And now it appears that the media is doing everything they can to sabotage her. And one of the main reasons why Alysia Liu was controversial at first is because of her appearance. She has dyed hair, she has a facial piercing, and like most Gen Zers who have an alternative look, she also has somewhat leftist political views, although I don't believe her heart is in it. Teen Vogue and Rolling Stone did interviews with her where they heavily pushed her to share her political views with the public, and she has been hesitant to do that beforehand. I found zero evidence of Alysia Liu talking about politics prior to the last interview that she did with Rolling Stone and what they added in Teen Vogue. But what they do, unfortunately, is they use her father's story of defecting from the CCP to bait her into talking about politics in the American political climate. And unfortunately, it worked for Rolling Stone, and she did take the bait. Here's an example of something that people love, though, about Alysia Liu. She's charming, she's charismatic, she's exuberant, she seems to feel this intense passion for what she does, and it brings a smile to her face to do something that's difficult. And it's very difficult to find somebody in the public eye who has passion for anything and doesn't act, aloof and above it all. So that's what I liked about her.
I saw a different take on this. So they were pointing out, somebody pointed out that she walked away because her dad pushed her so hard. And they tied that with the Zara Larsson post about how she got abs from laughing. And they said it's illegal to care nowadays. You're basically penalized if you're like, yeah, I work out because, you know, looking good is important to me. I skate hard and I practice 10 hours a day because winning at the Olympics is important to me. You have to be aloof. You have to be above it all. You know why? Because it makes losing easier. If you fail when you're aloof, well, who cares? You barely try.
Right.
But if you care.
Is the implication there that Zara Larsson was lying about?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure she was lying. I don't believe that you get a 6-pack from laughing all the time.
You do not.
You probably train intensely.
It's not just that. It's if you're going to be a pop music performer and you're going to do 2-3 hour shows that involve extensive dance numbers, even if you're lip syncing, that there's breath work. And you have to be stage ready. It's like pro wrestling. You have to be ring ready. You have to be in ring shape lest you get what they call getting blown up from being out of breath in 10 seconds, right? So no, she doesn't just, oops, looks, I just accidentally ended up with the abs. No, that's not how it works. But you're penalized these days for caring. That's what that's basically what people are talking about when I said that the millennials cared enough to make $35 burger joints where they actually cared about, you know, what they were making and were trying to make auteur and artisan stuff. At least they were trying to be something other than Walmart.
Well, in this Teen Vogue article, they really try to emphasize that Alysia Liu maintains a work-life balance since coming out of retirement. And that is true. She says that she wants to spend time with friends and have other hobbies outside of skating. But in contrast to the, you know, detached irony and aloof nature of other performers, here's something that she said in the same interview. I love pushing myself. There's this thing called AMCC in your brain, and it's where you say willpower resides. I love doing stuff that I really don't want to do. Really hard things. I get a kick out of it, and that's where I'm happy. And another interview, she said that she said, like, suffering makes her feel alive.
Honestly, that's fucking awesome.
People think that that's awesome, and it is. It is. And I actually looked into this in case anyone was interested. Tenacity, persistence in the face of challenge, has received increasing attention because it contributes to academic achievement, career opportunities, and health outcomes. And this study is reviewing the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, AMCC, an important network hub in the brain that performs the cost-benefit computations necessary for tenacity. So it appears that Alysia Liu has a lot of that.
I have a thing every year. First skating injury of the year. First, like, actual fall that hurts. And it's awesome. It's a reaffirmation of why you do what you do. And I don't even take risks anymore because I'm about to be 40. But the point is, anytime you catch your hip or you you spike your shin or something like that, and you're like, like, I actually kind of love it. I do.
Yeah, and I think it's cool to hear people talk about something that they're passionate about. That's always going to make you a more likable person. And people appreciate the honesty, and they appreciate someone who just appears to, like, enjoy being alive.
Funny how that works.
However, Alysia Liu was baited into sharing her political views in this Rolling Stone article. And let me just read this first. We'll get to it. So these are, according to Alysia Liu, the political issues that she cares about the most. This is a quote. Climate, election things, Black Lives Matter, Stop Asian Hate, ICE protests, and more empathy needs to happen for sure, she says. So, like,
Those
climate stuff.
She's just like me. These are all the things I care about.
And, like, election stuff. You know, like politics and stuff.
Election things is hilarious.
I'm sorry, her heart's not in it. I think that she was backed into a corner here, unfortunately. I want to show the video for more context. because this was prompted by the interviewer talking about her father.
Okay, here we go.
Because he's so into politics, like kind of my whole family is as well. It's like the ideology of like to fight for what's right, and like speak up, and like basic human rights, stuff like that. So that our family is pretty liberal, and like, yeah, I would say it's thanks to my father. And we're just like proud of his story. We're outspoken too, just like he was, I would say. I mean, he was like really outspoken, a whole nother level. Like yeah, me and my family, we go to protests, and my best friend, their family is also really involved with politics. Sometimes we'll call like our policy makers. We'd write like little letters. I remember when we were kids, we would do this a lot. But yeah, mostly protest, donations too, like little stuff here and there.
What are things that you've protested, or what are things you've called your congressperson about?
Yeah.
What are issues that you...
A lot of climate stuff, but mostly like election things, Black Lives Matter.
Feels like she got caught in something that she might be almost making up, and she's like, yeah.
Like Stop Asian Hate, ICE protests, and yeah, a ton of that.
Okay.
Yeah, so of course nobody likes someone who acts too cool for school, but this really put a bad taste in people's mouths, and I understand why. It would have been nice if she could have just stayed out of it. One of the replies said MAGA really thought that this girl was one of them. That's not correct.
No, it's not, as I was pointing out beforehand. Yeah. So I have seen plenty of, I guess, people you would call MAGA dunking on her now, which is fair game, but those same people were at least being fair and saying that, look, she's 20. I could, look at her hair, we could have guessed her hair color, but she stood for the national anthem. She put her hand over her heart, and she didn't disrespect the country. That's the most you can ask from her in that situation. The only thing that's fair about that, or the other thing that would be fair about that, is to also criticize her when she says stuff that you disagree with, but you have to also give her credit for doing the right thing and not disrespecting her country when she was standing on the podium, which they were worried she was going to do.
I think it's pretty ridiculous to claim that, anyone in the online right sphere thought she was some sort of like that she's based. Like, I don't think anybody thought that. And there's nothing shocking about a Gen Z girl with dyed hair and a facial piercing having relatively liberal views, or like default liberal views. And that's what she expressed in this clip. It's just that we have a lot of goodwill to spare for people who don't share their political views when that's not what they are known and celebrated for. Correct. And that goes for Sydney Sweeney as well.
Yep.
And that's why I said, in our previous segment about Alysia, that she has perfected the Sydney Sweeney effect, where you've got mass likability and you're not doing yourself any favors by alienating people with political statements like this.
Nope.
So hopefully this was a one-time mistake and she doesn't feel the need to become some sort of, activist in addition to being an athlete and a personality.
I'll tell you why it actually benefits her, because in her profession, if she's going to look beyond just performing at the Olympics and like national championships, the real money for her is in specific endorsement deals, but also the talk, like circuits where she can give speeches, speaking to young women, conferences for women's empowerment, anything like that will benefit her greatly. She's got a whole career in front of her as some type of motivational speaker, speaking on women's issues, the advancement of women in politics, the advancement of women in sports. All of that kind of exists part and parcel with leftist ideology. There isn't right-wing women's empowerment outside of like Turning Point USA doing their women's conference. But if she wants to go and like getting more women into like one of the things about the Gillian Anderson thing I was talking about earlier about her looking for equal pay, something they called the Scully effect, which was that women started getting involved in STEM because of her character on the X-Files. So for Alysia Liu, she can make a whole career off of inspiring young women to get into figure skating. So I actually do think that leftism in supporting leftist views, whether it's authentic or not, benefits her future career.
Well, that would have just meant, 15 years ago, just basic default girl power feminism, not talking about Black Lives Matter and ICE. Like, why do we need to make it a whole package deal?
Because it is a package.
I don't think she needs to speak to just women. I don't think that makes sense inherently that, just because she's a female athlete, she should only speak to and resonate with a female audience. And like, clearly she has a huge female audience, but she appeals to basically everybody. That's why I said that she perfected this Sydney Sweeney effect, because she managed to not only charm a male audience, but do so without alienating a female audience whatsoever. I think it would make more sense for her to maybe speak to a Gen Z audience, if anything, without putting an identity group on top of that.
I'm just telling you where I think if she's got an agent right now who's looking to market her beyond just figure skating, I think the clearest line of sight is to things like feminism, women's empowerment, going and speaking at events about what it took to survive when her big mean dad made her practice for too long and she decided to come back and win on her own. I think that's the marketing tool here.
So I thought it was interesting that you said the number one tell for her political views was actually everything that she said about her brief retirement from figure skating when she was 16, and how she came back to it on her own terms without anyone forcing her to practice.
It's bad.
Dedicate hours to it.
Having somebody who loves you, get you to commit fully to something is bad, because they're big meanie heads for making you practice 12 hours a day, even if it does mean that you're reaching national level stardom and are proof positive that practice and dedication works.
Mm-hmm. Well, in this other clip from the Rolling Stone interview, she shares that she doesn't think her dad deserves to be happy about her return to skating, because according to the way she's told the story, he was kind of responsible for pushing her away from it, because it wasn't something that she was pursuing just as an individual anymore. It felt like she was caving to his demands.
Did you have to fire your dad? Like, when you came back, did he want to get...
I didn't have to fire him. He was never there.
Okay.
So he was not on the team, so it was fine.
What was his response when you decided to come back?
I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, he was happy, but like, that didn't matter to me. I didn't care that he was happy. I was almost mad that he was happy, because I was like, how dare you?
What do you mean?
Well, I was just kind of like, you don't deserve to be happy over this decision, kind of.
This is
because you were mad when I quit. So I was kind of like, he shouldn't have an opinion on it at all, if that makes sense. Like, I didn't want him to be mad that I was coming back. I didn't want him to care, like, at all, because it shouldn't affect him as much as it did, like, the last time around.
That is being 20, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I don't like that they're forcing her to talk about her private family matters like that. And I know that no one's forcing her to answer, but I'm sure she feels like she has to share these things, and it's not a good look. And people with a more conservative worldview just aren't sympathetic to what she's saying in that clip, because they think that, her father did right by her to push her. And in a certain sense, that's true, but also you're never going to know what really happened in their own private relationship.
There's two sides of this. We have reached a point in this country where parental obsession over youth sports is at like an all-time high.
Oh yeah.
As somebody who played hockey, growing up, and my dad did coach.
There's some unhinged hockey parents.
And it wasn't nearly as bad when I was a kid as opposed to the parents now, right? But the thing is they spend a fortune. Like, they spend like a small fortune trying to get you involved in these sports. And for me personally, I do think that every kid should play some type of team sport. And because there are a lot of unbelievably good lessons that you can learn, not just about sportsmanship and teamwork, but about consistency and learning to develop you know, getting up when you don't want to. All our hockey practices were at 6 a.m. on Saturdays, and I never wanted to go, but I never regretted going once you did, right? That's something that's very hard to learn. That never worked for me in school. I got up every day for school early and hated every second of it. But when I got up early for hockey, I didn't like getting up, but I always liked going. So there are a lot of valuable skills to learn. And for people that want to perform at her level, it's not something you get to just aloof your way into. You don't get to just say, "Aw, shucks, I think I'll give it a shot and try." It requires an unbelievable level of discipline. And most of the time, when you're in those early years, children don't have it, and it requires a parent to instill that in you. But much in the way that we've gotten away from any type of what you would deem harsh parenting, you're not allowed to be that type of parent anymore because you're a big meanie head. Like I said, you're a big meanie head who's making them do something they don't want to do.
I mean, there are other things about her family situation that are objectively strange, given that, you know, her mom was an anonymous egg donor and she was born via surrogate, as were all of her siblings. I think you're kind of bound to have some daddy and mommy issues in a scenario as weird as that. But I do understand why people kind of had a bad taste in their mouth from hearing that comment from her. And I want to ask you if you think that she missed out on something by not being part of a team sport, because it is an inherently, like, what she's doing in figure skating is inherently an individual.
It is, but she still works with coaches and stuff like that. So I guess there's two schools of thought here. I guess I might have been a little bit too broad in my statement earlier. Like, I learned a lot of stuff about, you know, working as a team, but I'm inherently an individualist, which is why I went to skating. And it did break my dad's heart a little bit when I quit hockey and at that time, because I played baseball, I played hockey, and then when I found skating, I got obsessed. Something that I still do to this day. I'm about to turn 40 this year, so he doesn't regret it in some ways, but in other ways I think it does. I think he wishes I would have continued playing because he played his whole life. But I think the skills that you learn, like consistency, determination, resiliency, can be learned in an individual sport as well. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't learn those other skills. It's the same reason some people talk about the things that become a benefit by joining the military, right? Like, all of those are learned, plus working within a team structure with a hierarchy. I think that the skills she learned are plenty to be getting on with at 20, and she's got plenty of time to learn other things. So I don't think that she needed to join a team sport.
Overall, I don't think anyone should feel shocked or horrified or betrayed to learn that Alysia Liu is a lib. It's not a surprise at all, but let's just cross our fingers and hope that this is the last we're going to hear of it. Because otherwise, that would really kind of ruin her whole mass appeal.
Let's go to Super Chats. And I really do think, honestly, that she's got a whole career in front of her, if not in coaching. Like, it's actually funny to think of her as a coach because she quit. And then like is she going to tell her students, yeah, quit if you want to?
It's only okay when I do it.
It's only okay when I do it.
As I say, not as I do.
But I really do think that she's got a future career in women's empowerment.
Oh, gosh. That's unfortunate. We need Gen Z empowerment. I don't want to see more women's empowerment.
Yep.
I think she should talk to her generation.
Guys, we are like dangerously close to hitting some, like, we're going to get more emojis coming soon here on YouTube once we hit 100 channel members. So if you have not yet subscribed or become a channel member, please do so. Remember, there will be additional content, emojis, and if I see your name in green in there, meaning you're a channel member, you should be using the emojis.
Nice. Okay, we have a bunch of super chats to get through here. Shane H. Wilder said, "Isn't calling it feminist horror redundant?"
Yeah.
You really got her. Robert Delara said, "The reason Maggie Gyllenhaal became a director is because everything she has been in since The Dark Knight, nobody has cared about."
Well,
she wasn't even the best part of that trilogy. Not even close.
Nobody really cared about her in that movie either.
No.
Rachel.
Adam said, I haven't seen Hoppers, but from the trailer, it is definitely a furry movie.
I mean, people are going to say that about literally any movie that's about animals now.
Yeah, I mean, Zootopia, I understand why you would say that because the furries are obsessed with Zootopia, but they've been making movies about anthropomorphic creatures for a long time now. It doesn't make them furries. Greg Duvier said the problem with most modern trailers is they either put too much of what happened in the movie or they put fake scenes in the trailer. Yeah, Joker Folie à Deux was, I think, the worst example of the latter.
Mm-hmm.
They literally put in this completely fake deleted scene in the Joker Folie à Deux trailer.
Not fake, deleted.
I don't know how well they planned that out, but
like you can't there's no way to like. I remember at one point there was like law, like somebody proposed a law, or somebody was suing because scenes that were in a trailer were not in a movie. Well, you're never going to get them to decide that, you know, the second they come out with a trailer, they are now required to put that scene in the movie.
Yeah.
It's not
but it was a totally different ending to the movie that they put in the trailer though, because it was making you think that Arthur was going to like team up with his Harley Quinn at the end and they were gonna like take over the city together, when in reality she just ended up abandoning him. It was stupid. Moon at Noon said, "Happy birthday, Mary Morgan. Prove me wrong." Well, it's not my birthday, but I guess I can't prove you wrong because then I'd have to show my license on the stream.
The local Wendigo on Rumble says, "I'm happy to see people dressed up fancy when I see a showing of an old Russian movie, Alexander Nevsky, about the battle on the ice." Okay.
I'm not against people dressing up.
And one from Broody Gambit says, "I binge-watched Young Sherlock this weekend. I remember you mentioned starting it. What did you think?" I watched one episode and I have not gone back to it yet. My attention span got distracted. My attention got distracted by other such shiny things, like old shows I've seen 15 times before, and trying to continue catching up on Scream Queens, which I'm still working my way through.
As you should.
Yep.
Yes. Carnell said, "A great example of a recent movie with an estimated $20 million budget was Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die. It did well with audiences with good word of mouth. Unfortunately, not enough people saw it in theaters."
Yep.
I don't remember that one. Pop Culture Junkie said, "Any thoughts on Netflix dumping Meghan Markle? I saw that one coming a mile away." Well, I knew that they were probably going to cancel her show, but I wasn't aware that Netflix was invested in her lifestyle brand. They pulled out their investment, of course. I'm not surprised. No.
It's not exactly shocking.
No. Corey Anderson said, if you play video games, give friend of the show Vera Dark a follow. Her content is awesome, and she will be streaming the Lesbian Night game on Thursday. What is that?
I don't know, but I know for a fact that if I was her and bad games were getting made, I would look forward to streaming them.
Yes. Shane H. Wilder said you read that one earlier. Christina Lee said, "To me, Maggie Gyllenhaal and Jake Gyllenhaal look exactly the same, except Maggie looks 20 years older. They both have distorted facial features."
They look exactly 0% alike.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree more. Before the stream, I was just ranting to Brett about how it's like so weird that they don't even look slightly related.
I look more like Maggie
which one of them
Gyllenhaal.
was adopted?
Yeah.
It's weird. Yeah, I don't see many similarities there. Robert Delara said, "David is by far the most likable Arquette. Unfortunately, his likable personality did not rub off on either Rosanna or Patricia."
Yes, they are both annoying.
I liked Patricia Arquette in Severance.
Okay.
But I don't know if I've seen her in anything else.
She was in Medium.
I'm not a fan of True Romance.
Medium was like her big television show, which came out around the same time as Ghost Whisperer, which was obviously better because it had Jennifer Love Hewitt, who's just better in every conceivable way possible on planet Earth. Like she actually looks like a nice person, whereas Patricia Arquette just looks unbelievably annoying. And then she, in 2015, she was in CSI Cyber, and apparently so uninspiring that she somehow managed to make the only CSI show that went like 1 season and got canceled, whereas every other CSI show went at least 5.
Shane H. Wilder said, "Deport Minnie Mouse."
Yeah.
And those sexy white go-go boots.
I was wondering if I should say something about the sexy boots, but I decided not to. Also, you'd think there would be, assuming that video's real and it's not some type of rage bait, like there has to be some type of policy about getting caught like on a cigarette break.
Well, don't you think that? Oh, that's definitely happened before. I think it was Goofy.
We've shown it on the show.
Yeah, but don't you think that he was one of those like Craigslist like birthday party?
I hope so. And
mascots.
He can't have been working at
wasn't
actual.
it.
You're telling me they fired that amazing? They fired that amazing evil queen lady, but kept him?
Yeah, that's unfortunate if true. Shane H. Wilder said, "Japanese game shows be wildin'. I'm here for it."
They do look chaotic.
Here in the U.S., you go on the Tonight Show and fake laugh together, and in Japan, you're like hitting foam with mallets, and it just looks way more fun. I don't know.
Yep.
Drummer 8725 said, "Can we get a crisis party for 20 gifted memberships? Asking for a friend."
We can do that. If we get 20 gifted memberships, I will. We will have a crisis party. So. Wait, yes, it has to be like from one person though. It can't be like, or wait, no. Yeah. No, because when we do crisis parties, it's not like they have to be from.
Well, they don't.
It would have to equal out to 20 different, 20 different gifted memberships would have to be gifted out to various people, but they don't have to all come from one person.
The memberships don't, factor into the crisis meter though.
The Joker in the chat says even CSI Miami got 10 seasons. See, that's the problem. It's not even CSI Miami. It's the best of the CSIs by far, if you ask me. Far better than New York and far better than original, but that's just my personal preference. There it is.
Boston. Oh, did we get 20 gifted
memberships? Yes, we did.
Now?
We got this from Drummer 8725, 20 gifted memberships. That's amazing. Thank you.
Where's the card?
Thank you, Drummer.
Boston said Brett and Mary should be on a Japanese game show.
Honestly, that would be way more fun than going on Colbert.
Please. Robert Delera said Timothee Chalamet did not say he disliked opera or ballet.
Correct.
People need to stop getting offended and start listening to what is being said. Yeah, that's a tall order in the Big 26. I think everyone has lost their ability to regulate their emotions online.
Yep.
Pat the Plumber said, "My hero Brett Dasovic got me all confused with the button up. I don't know what's going on, but I like it."
Oh, I read that one earlier.
Okay.
Yes. Look, here's the thing. I was actually assuming that I was going to overheat and have to take it off halfway through, but my fan has multiple settings over here, so we're good.
Keep it on for the style.
We're good.
Red Snow said, "Our hero, Pat. Fixed that for you." That's nice. You're all of our hero.
I appreciate that.
The Deadlifter said, "What did I miss? Why is Mary no longer in studio? I know I've missed PCC for the past 3 months, but what happened?" See, you haven't been around in a while. Welcome back.
This is the thing, though. This is why you have to constantly re-answer the questions, because every time once we get done with a show, somebody leaves a comment, or if it's like somebody commenting on a Tuesday show or a Thursday show, which are the 2 days a week. If you don't know and you're still watching, Mary's on live Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tuesdays has historically been Colonel Kurtz, but that's up in the air right now. And then Thursdays has been a variety of people. We had Phil last week. Even last week on Tuesday, my wife was on the show, and it was a ton of fun. But Mary is live Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but we can't constantly have to address it because eventually my vocal cords will give out.
Well, that is what happened. I moved, so I no longer live in the area of the studio. I'm in Nashville. just in case anyone missed that. I know there's a new person who's confused every day.
Every day.
Francisco Sanchez Jr. said, I think we read that one earlier. Shane H. Wilder said, every ballet or opera I've been to has been casual dress. I've seen everybody from rig hands and plumbers to CEOs and oil barons attend.
Then let me...
Yeah, they literally, people like picture Bruce Wayne when they think of the average attendee at an opera, but it's not true.
So picture this. You know who could fix this? I'm going to blow your mind right now. Timothee Chalamet could fix this by making a movie that shows normal people going to the opera. It can be like Marty Supreme for the opera, where he's the most cocky opera singer of all time, but he's not playing Broadway at 7 p.m. He's doing off-Broadway, and everybody who shows up is just a normal-looking person.
He could play a pretty sick Phantom of the Opera remake.
There you go.
That wouldn't be so bad. I didn't care for him in the Wonka movie, but, you know, maybe he can make a comeback. Robert said, Maggie is in jail because she wrote, directed, produced, and cast her bro. Chloe was a diversity hire to shield from criticism because Marvel calls the shots.
Marvel is ostensibly the director of all their movies. That is true. Unless it's... Even when it is the bigger name directors, they get more leeway, I'm sure. Sam Raimi gets more leeway than Chloe Zhao to make what he wants. But at the same time, Chloe Zhao made a super boring movie. So how am I supposed to believe that Marvel wanted that? It was exactly like I imagined a Chloe Zhao movie would be.
Yeah.
Boring.
Yeah. Shane H. Wilder said, Coco having a 12-year gap between movies isn't too crazy. Incredibles had a 14-year gap, although Incredibles is more beloved and a better film. Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, maybe I'm just out of touch, but has the average person like seen Coco and like cares about it, knows the characters' names and everything? I just don't. I never like watched it, so I don't know if it's worth the hype, but
yeah.
It's definitely not on the level of The Incredibles or anything else that Pixar was coming up with in the 2000s.
Broody Gambit over on Rumble says the only opera I would be inclined to attend features Bugs Bunny. What about the Muppets?
I think you already addressed this, but Pat the Plumber asked, Brett, you gonna watch Young Sherlock? I quite enjoy it, I must say.
I might watch episode 2. I don't know. It depends. I'm kind of enjoying the stuff that I'm watching right now. And Olivia is really in. She finally got really into White Collar, so I'm like loving it right now because I love that show. So maybe I'll find my way back to it at some point.
Shane H. Wilder said, you're supposed to write what you know, but that does not mean making a cartoon about your childhood trauma or fetishes as a form of therapy. Yeah, the problem with write what you know these days is that people just know, you know, their own reflection. They're just such narcissists. So, like, they only think about themselves. And elsewise, they know what's on their phone. Like, they know their algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they're going to write about.
Yep.
Boston said $5 for the correct, stunningly beautiful Karen conservative contrarian Daria Wednesday.
Oh my gosh,
this is
it's gotten so much longer.
The only non-political show I like. You guys rock. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's a high compliment. Burned Oils said, Haley Williams has a great song that says, if there's resistance, it makes you stronger. It's not the end. Dead on lyrics, wishing her well with her struggles. Lisa Liu or Haley Williams? I guess both.
Yeah.
They're both struggling, apparently. Shane H. Wilder said, people really do need to learn to suffer well. It's good for you and you'll be happier, like the pressure put upon coal to turn it into a diamond. This is true.
It's important.
It's a very like transgressive thing for someone Alysia Liu's age to say with the platform that she has, because Gen Z is just obsessed with comfort and safety, and they're so risk averse and self-centered. I think she should talk to an audience of people her age, you know, not just be a figure of women empowerment. I think that's boring and it's been done too many times. And she has an impactful countercultural message to share with people her age. Red Snow said, is mining a team or solo sport? Perhaps both.
Is what?
Is mining a sport at all? Is my question.
I
don't know. Pat the Plumber said, you could have been a Minnesota Mallard, Brett. You gave up your dreams of going pro.
I first of all, that would have never happened. I'm too short. The thing about hockey is like,
do you have to be tall in hockey?
No, but you would benefit from being taller than me. So basically, the idea was when you're my height and you're younger, you benefit from speed and agility. But as other people grow, their legs get longer and they can make up that difference much faster. Not to mention getting checked by somebody who's 3 inches taller than you fucking sucks.
That's
so it's a whole thing, back and forth. But one thing I do wish that I would get around to doing is getting back to playing like an adult league someday on the weekends. Perhaps I will do that one, especially now that I'm married. That's like that, and joining a softball team are things you do once you get married and settle down. So maybe that's what I end up doing.
Shane H. Wilder said, become a member. Now, look, if you can afford gay-ass Netflix, then you can afford a PCC membership.
That is true.
That's true. Netflix is like actually way more expensive than a PCC membership. Pop Culture Junkie said Hoppers is kind of a mashup of Avatar and Zootopia.
Okay, then.
I don't know if that's something I'd be interested in, but I'm not the target demo, so don't mind me. Shane H. Wilder said, we need Japanese game shows. All we get is the greatest average American where people compete to be average and win $67,920, the average U.S. salary. Is that actually a real show, or are you joshing me right now?
I have no idea if that's a real thing.
I think I'm getting trolled. Let me see if I can find it. Wait, it actually is real.
Okay.
The Greatest Average American is a game show where people compete to prove that they're the most average. That's sad. Okay. Wish I didn't know that.
Wait, does that mean you get more points if you're below average or above average? That's the real question.
Both are bad.
Or is it like Price is Right, where you want to guess just under?
Yes.
Okay.
Red Snow said, make Ninja Warrior great again. I really miss watching American Ninja Warrior. That was really fun.
Yep.
That was a good show. High Voltage 75 said, no sun today. Did you finally cover your windows? I did not. It's actually just a really gloomy, dark day outside, but it's better for lighting on the show.
Yes, it is.
Shane H. Wilder said, I had to look up Coco and was like, oh, that movie? It was like Anne from Arrested Development. Her? Yeah, I must be so unk that I am not, clued into the kids' movies that were popping off 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. But I also just feel like I have a pretty good radar for what is popular in the mainstream. Mm-hmm. Moana is. I don't think Coco is on that level.
Yes, Coco is not on the level of Moana.
No, not even close. But they're trying to make it into one of their flagship franchises with 10 sequels, and I'm just not down with that. I think we're all caught up on the super chats, though.
Oh, I think we got one more here, if I remember correctly.
It's just not visible on my end.
From Shane H. Wilder says, that is a real show on NBC. Why would I lie to you, Mary? Especially about something so cringe. You know me better than that.
Yeah, that sounds like the worst show ever. I'm actually in the middle of a Project Runway rewatch, so I'm just going to stick with the old reliable.
All right, guys, before we go, would you all hit the like button on this video and subscribe to the channel if you are new here and you have not subscribed here yet already? Please and thank you. Remember to share the episode out with everybody, because the more people that you share our content with, the faster this channel can grow. It really is the best way to help us. So thank you all so much for that. Mary, where can they find you?
You guys can send me validation on Instagram. That is Mary Archived. Or you can send me hate on X. That is also Mary Archived. And help me get TikTok famous. That is also Mary archived.
Perfect. If you guys want to follow me, I am on Instagram and on X at Brett Dasovic on both of those platforms. PCC is live 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is, of course, noon Pacific. We are on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, and Spotify. If you would like to listen rather than just watch the show, you can rate and review on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, which is another great way to help us out. Also, remember that special episode with Verbal Riot is up for audio listeners now as well, so you can find it there as the PCC Weekend Update. It came out on Saturday. And if you want to follow us on social media, we are on Twix at popculture_show, Facebook at Pop Culture Crisis, Instagram at Pop Culture Crisis Pod. Guys, we will be back with another episode tomorrow. We'll see you then. Bye, everybody.
Bye.